What is maritime security? My name is Christian Büber. I'm a professor of international relations at the University of Copenhagen and also one of the directors of the Safe Seas network. In this short video, I'd like to introduce you to some of the basics of maritime security. Now, what is maritime security? The first thing to note is that it is a relatively recent agenda. So the discussion kicks off in the 1990s, but gets into full swing actually only in the 2010 years. It is basically an invitation to think about the importance of security at sea, the importance of the oceans. So it's an invitation to think about these security challenges. It is also a nascent, a growing field of research and risk analysis. Yet maritime security is also diverse and also in many ways a contested concept. Now, when we're talking about maritime security, there's a number of issues which usually take the center stage. And allow me to briefly introduce you to these major issues. The first I would like to mention here is piracy and armed robbery at sea, and that significantly harms trade as well as tourism insofar as it targets shipping and quite obviously also cruise liners, sailors, and so on. Another major issue on the agenda is smuggling of various goods, and that can be counterfeits, narcotics, and that is really, really problematic because it can undermine public health, but also the tax monopoly of the state. A very important and growing issue of concern is illegal fishing. And illegal fishing directly threatens biodiversity and also the prospects for sustainably fishing. Pollution also is a big environmental concern under the maritime security agenda. And here you see a direct threat for the marine environment. But there are also issues which form part of the broader security agenda. And here it's important to keep in mind the significant impacts that interstate disputes can have on any prospects to actually sustainably manage ocean resources, but also to govern the sea. Terrorism and extremist violence, as we see it in many places of the world, quite obviously are also an important part of that agenda. Now, why is maritime security diverse and contested? This is something that I highlighted towards the beginning. And here we have to clearly acknowledge that there's a core question of how maritime security relates to other earlier agendas and ways of thinking. And that includes, for instance, naval strategy, concerns over safety at sea, particular shipping, then also other more recent issues such as the blue economy, and essentially also marine conservation. So how does maritime security actually relate to these agendas? Another contested issue is which of these issues that I've just mentioned and potentially others should actually be included under the umbrella of maritime security. Should we also think about nuclear deterrence as a maritime security issue, perhaps plastic pollution? And aren't interstate disputes way too important to include them under maritime security? So these are some of the open questions that actors differentiate over. And because of that, countries and organizations have quite different understandings of what they mean by maritime security and which of the issues should actually gain priority. And we have quite a wide spectrum of approaches here. And some organizations conceive of it in very narrow terms, and others have a very encompassing understanding of maritime security. And because of that, for us as analysts, it is a core challenge how to grasp this multiplicity of meaning. And one way of how to think about it, to give you an initial framework, is through the following graph. And here, maritime security is primarily a triangle where you see in one corner interstate issues and the other corner extremist violence, and then different forms of what can be called blue crime. And that primarily includes piracy, different forms of smuggling, including the smuggling of people as part of illicit migration flows, and then also environmental issues, including illegal fishing. Another way of thinking about it is to actually try to map the multiplicity of meaning. And here you see the maritime security matrix, and that is in essence an attempt to investigate how different organizations and actors ascribe different meanings to the term. And the core idea here is to look at the different relations that actors establish between concepts. So this is to give you two initial tools. I'd like to invite you to watch other videos where these tools are explained in greater detail, but I hope this gives you an initial idea of what maritime security is about. So to conclude here, maritime security is an important concept and agenda that has the primary objective to protect the oceans and activities at sea. It is an emerging, increasingly important field of study and analysis, yet it remains recent and in many ways a contested domain of activities and thinking. I'd like to invite you to watch other episodes where we explain these dimensions of maritime security in great detail. Visit our website and also please follow us on Twitter. Thank you for listening.